Let's call the village board meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Gus.
Here.
Trustee Jensen.
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Addison.
Here.
Trustee Siddick. Here. And Trustee Wells.
We have a quorum, and I'm here too, by the way.
The mayor's here and
Oh, that's
also the
right.
clerk. And our attorney.
Mayor Hucker and Attorney Magna and
As
Clerk
if you
McDonald.
couldn't tell.
Yes.
All right, if you would all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, for any of you that were expecting this to be a really short meeting, I hate to disappoint you tonight, but we have a full agenda.
I'm getting my hair done at 7:15, so I'm
Well,
not going to make it.
I think you can make
You're
it.
going to be late?
Yeah. We did not have a earlier meeting this month. That meeting was canceled due to lack of agenda items, and we had a couple of trustees that were not going to be able to attend. So tonight we have a little longer agenda. So first we have the consent agenda, which includes the following: approval of the minutes of the June 26th, 2014 board meeting. Bills presented for payment in the amount of $318,427.20. The June finance report, the public works report, engineers report, building report, public safety report, code enforcement report, and the planning and zoning report. Is there anything that the board would like to have discussed and approved separately? Is there anything that the public would like to have discussed and approved separately? There being nothing, I would accept a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a couple seconds to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? There being none, roll call, please.
Trustee Jensen.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Addison.
Aye.
Trustee Siddick. Aye. Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Gus.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to trustee reports. We have building and zoning, trustee Wells.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a few items.
Reminder also for everyone to turn your microphones on when you're speaking tonight, just in case. Sorry, Don asked me to remind you of that. Go ahead, sorry.
All right, first item for consideration is an ordinance approving a variance for standards of the SR Suburban Residential District at 12762 West Beach Road. The petitioner is requesting a variance for a reduced yard abutting a street, an unapproved street, which is Adelphi. The typical setbacks there would be 30 feet generally from a right-of-way. He is looking for a 20-foot departure, an increase in the maximum allowable area of the accessory structure. Typically, in that district, we allow 1,285 square feet. I think he's looking for an increase of 215 square feet departure, which will bring it to a total of 1,500 square feet, and the increase in the maximum height of an accessory structure, which is typically, our ordinance calls for 18 feet for accessory structure in that district, and he's looking to, according to the petition, to go 30 feet now. I have since talked with Mr. Hutchinson, and he did indicate that he would be willing to make some adjustments. I think the house is currently 25 feet on the property. Again, the principal structure is 25 feet. Again, he is looking to possibly, based on the last conversation, to possibly match that in the petition. It said 30 feet, but again, seeing as how the house principal structure is only 25, he's looking to, I guess, stay at least in line with that.
I believe in our packets, we also have a note from him to that effect as well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It went before the planning commission. They voted to approve it. I think it was unanimously approved there, I guess with a couple of vacancies, a couple of absences. The engineer didn't have any problem, just indicated again that I guess the building would be in a path where, I guess, normal drainage patterns, but that could be adjusted as need be. I just, on my part, would just like to just express a couple of points. Mr. Hutchison, who's in the audience, very nice man, and I think he's had some issues with the, and he will probably elaborate on that for you, but I had some issues, I guess, with some of the attendees at the sports complex, which is somewhat unrelated from our actual building issues that we have here. But he has a number of items sitting outside. He wants to be able to store those inside, so we're looking for the additional volume of the 215 feet. I personally did not, I went out and walked the property, didn't see the need for variance. There's a considerable amount of property there because there's a lot consolidation involved with that, so there's a considerable amount of property there. And one of the concerns that the engineer did have that the planners, is that at some point in time, that street, Delphi, might wind up going through, and if so, that based on the initial submittal, would only be about 10 feet from the ROW. And as you know, again, our ordinance does call for 30 feet. So that I did have a little issue with. I didn't see the hardship in that respect, and also as far as the height. One of the problems that we've had ongoing in the village is that we've had a problem with the oversized accessory building being converted to commercial uses. We have a big problem in the village with that, and that's one of the things that staff, myself, and the board has been working to correct over the course of the last few years. This ordinance was actually restructured in order to try to accommodate, again, the needs of our citizens, but also take consideration that we want to maintain the character of our residential areas. In many cases, these residential areas are being used for construction companies, landscape companies, a host of a variety of other commercial uses, which actually, again, just definitely takes away from the character of the residential setting and also impacts property values to some degree as well. So I did have an issue, again, with the height as far as the volume. I didn't have a big issue with that if he needs additional volume. He does have a lot of stuff outside. The increase, though, up to 30 feet or 25 feet, I did have a little issue with that, and also with the finding a hardship in terms of setbacks, because there's plenty of room there. There's some floodplain at the northwest corner of the property, but again, appears to be ample room that he could still get the building on the site without having to encroach into that area. And with that,
So, based on your description, I hear you expressing concerns about a couple of the variations that have been recommended from the Plan Commission. Just a point of order, to modify the recommendation from the Plan Commission, what is the board's burden?
There is no burden. It's a board decision based on a majority of the quorum that's present.
Okay.
So if there are modifications to the form of the written ordinance, which you have,
It's on. There
is
you
it
go.
on? There
Yeah.
you go. Okay. Based on the form of the written ordinance which you have, you can pencil in your changes or
Right.
strikeouts accordingly, but it's simple majority vote.
Okay. If there was a overall reversal of the recommendation, that would require a supermajority of the board, or the same number of votes for all practical purposes. It would be a 4-vote requirement to overturn the recommendation or to deny.
To deny, you have an ordinance before you tonight on the agenda, so there would be presumably a motion to approve the ordinance, a second, discussion, and then a vote, and it'll either be yea or nay on the form of the ordinance you have here
After,
tonight.
if, or amended on the amended
Or as
version.
amended
Okay.
on its
Okay.
face.
Mr. Mayor, just real quick, I had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Hutchison. He did, I talked to him late this afternoon. He did indicate that if need be, he would be willing to look at some other concessions. He had spent, I guess, funding to have this done, so he wanted to try to
Certainly.
retrieve some satisfaction out of it. So he did say he would be willing to modified it. The other, one quick other point that I do want to make, in terms of Mr. Hutchison presented a number of photos showing other oversized accessory buildings throughout the village. And I'm familiar with each and every one of those, and every one of those buildings that were actually shown in the photos, with the exception of the sports complex facility, every last one of them has either been cited by the village, has been approached by the village, or has had commercial activity on them. So that's part of the issue that we have here, is that these buildings have created an issue, and each one of the pictures that he did present showing similar buildings that he wanted to put up, we've had issues with them in terms of commercial activity.
Well, and it's certainly not necessarily to in any way insinuate that he has designs to run a commercial business.
Absolutely.
But what we see happen is a building is built and then new owners
Yeah.
take possession, and that's when it becomes a business without permits.
I have a question, too. Were you done?
We're at a place, we're at an unusual place because it sounds like we're not going to get a motion, at least not from the presenter, to approve as presented. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is if there's going to be some recommendations to changes prior to,
That's, yeah.
so.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If, Larry, you spoke the setback requirement per the ordinance is 30 feet. He's asking for 10. Would splitting the difference make you feel any different if you 20 foot rather than 10?
I guess that brings us closer to the ordinance. What I'm always have a concern about is that, again, and I know Mr. Hudson mentioned to me, he said there was other buildings that was closer, and that's one of the things that we're actually trying to do, is not randomly enforce the ordinance where we have some consistency and some fairness. And when I look at them, that's kind of how I approach it, that if in fact there's a problem with the ordinance, maybe we should go back and look at the whole ordinance and change that if that's an issue. But to arbitrarily pick and choose, I think that might lend itself to the impression of inconsistency or unfairness, at least from my perspective.
Well, the way the ordinances are written, they do allow for a variance procedure, and that's why we're here. So theoretically, we're doing exactly what the ordinance says, looking at it on a case by case. If he's requested a variance, that's what we're looking at. We're not,
Correct.
you know,
Correct.
I don't consider it random. He's
But-
gone through the motions to get to where we are right now, so.
And I appreciate that. One of the things we do want to keep in mind, though, the ordinance does indicate that for variance, one of the criteria for variance is the indication of a hardship. And that was the problem I had actually establishing, is meeting that threshold, so.
Well, if I was in a position to have a lot of toys and nowhere to store them, I would consider that a hardship. I just don't happen to have any toys and need a bigger barn right now. I'm assuming that's what we're,
Procedurally, if we're going to modify this in any substantial way, the board would either really need to assemble its own findings of fact to support its rationale for the decision, or send it back to the Plan Commission and ask them to reconsider the recommendation. I guess we're at a place where, you know, certainly we have an opportunity, if someone wants to make a motion to approve the ordinance as presented with the recommendations of the Plan Commission, we could certainly take that step and have that vote. And that's an up or down vote. If, however, there's a desire to amend or modify, then I think we want to maybe at least hear the concerns tonight and then see if that's something we want to pick a direction, send it back to the Plan Commission, or have the committee, the Planning and Zoning Committee, or Building and Zoning Committee, create those findings of fact in order to bring it back to the board at a future meeting. Kind of it's an unusual situation for it to be here and then be trying to modify backwards.
And Mr. Mayor, actually, in my conversation with Mr. Hutchinson, he did indicate if that appeared to be the direction it was going, he wouldn't have a problem with actually having them take a look at it and tweaking
Right.
some components of it.
I guess as long as we're here and as long as we're in the midst of this discussion, are there any other concerns? I've heard concerns about setback from the side yard, or from the unimproved right-of-way, and I've heard the height was a concern.
Restriction against commercial use
And,
in the future.
yeah, yeah, there's an implied, obviously, restriction against any commercial use, but you're correct there as well. Any other concerns about this or thoughts, pro or con?
Well,
from any of the other board members?
I have one more thought when we're talking about the setback from the unimproved right-of-way. We're all familiar with the procedure when somebody applies to vacate a right-of-way and wants to purchase that. We have a document that our engineer has come up with, and everybody's in agreement, that showing every right-of-way, every unimproved right-of-way within the village, and stating whether or not there is any benefit or any thought of running a street through there in the future. And that's what they use to determine whether or not to vacate a right-of-way, sell it to the petitioner. So I would kind of like to know where this one stands in that, and if it's on the list of the ones that we have no interest in improving in the future, it may or may not ever go in. That would make me feel a little better about the setback variance. But if it's one that's shown strategically that we should put through, then I agree 100%. We should be more concerned with the variance on the setback.
Mark, from the planner's perspective, they did indicate, Jeremiah did indicate that, again, at this particular time, there was no plans to actually go through, but he was concerned about if there was ever a signal put at Green Bay Road that might be utilized, that road might be put through. So that was expressed in the planner's comments.
Well, again, that should be on the,
Do we know if
That
that
right-of-way map.
right-of-way is on the plan?
Yes, Mr. Hutchinson's original intention, he did come to the village and ask the village to vacate that right-of-way on a informal basis, and the response was no. There is a sewer main through there, and ultimately we looked at it without him formally going through the process for the vacation. We denied that vacation request.
okay.
Well, based on that, I wouldn't support this in its present form. I have a concern about the right-of-way and the close proximity of the proposed structure that violates our own setback.
Any other thoughts from the board?
I wasn't clear, did we say that the house is 25 feet, so he was willing to have
I did take a measurement.
you're willing to have the garage be 25 feet as well? Is that the,
Yeah, absolutely. I can provide some more information, some of the questions you guys are asking if you give me the opportunity.
Sure.
that-
Come on up.
Well, first up, hi all. I'm Alan Hutchison. I live at over on Beach Road. So some of the questions that you guys are asking are about, we'll kind of take them one at a time. The height issue was something that 30 feet got thrown out as a number that we were not to be above in the early stages, and that number kind of stuck. After going through and getting the approval of the Planning and Zoning Committee, which was approved at 30 feet, they came back to me and said that, we're concerned that this is over the top of the structure of the house. We'd like to see proof of the structure being 30 feet. And at that point, I wrote the letter of intention that you guys have in your packets. That is, I'm absolutely not trying to build a building over the top of the principal structure. Absolutely not. That was a number that was thrown out there early on, and that's why I wrote that in there. There's actually, I don't know if it made it into the packets or not, there's an updated truss plan to bring the top of that building back down underneath the principal. So my intention is not to be any higher than that at all. I'm trying to actually hide that structure behind the house. As invisible as it can be is fantastic for me. Some of the problems and some of the things that started this were from that sports park. I've had trespassing and theft and people who invite themselves over to come shopping and things that I would consider private things on private property. As far as the offset, I requested through Planning and Zoning to have that offset set at 15 feet, and that is what was in the paperwork. And that was approved through Planning and Zoning. And then after talking back and forth with Commissioner Wells, it was discussed that that was potentially too close and that could potentially be a problem. And so after re-looking at that today, I again, took a tape measure out there, and I think I can be at 20 feet offset, so even 5 feet closer to being in conformance without really giving up anything on the side of that structure. So I'm trying to, basically those are two things that were approved through Planning and Zoning, the 30 feet and the 15-foot offset. And since that meeting, I've made concessions to try and become as close as I can possibly be to be as close to being in conformance as I can.
Okay, the actual approval of the side yard setback was 10 feet, not 15. That's why it got the attention of the board. It's very close. It's the documentation that we have here is indicating that the difference is 20 feet.
So it got pushed through at 10 feet.
Yeah.
I think his original application asked for 10 feet in the ordinance. The Plan Commission did settle for the 15 feet. So the ordinance is prepared for 15 feet. But
You're right.
the original application was for 10. Plan
right.
Commission settled at 15, and that's where it's at.
Thank you for that clarification. I did see that in that was in the summary of the request I was reading from instead of the ordinance. You're right.
And then even still beyond that, between that planning meeting and today, I've made a concession of another 5 feet to be 20 feet offset, to try and be as close as I can, and, you know, make that as, you know, as close to conformance as possible. I know one of the other comments that was made was that it's a big lot, and there's lots of places to put that garage somewhere else, and that's unfortunately not the case. The position that's where it's at is just behind, do you guys have an overall layout, an overall view? Excellent. That one's, the one that's drawn in by pencil is a little bit not to scale, but there's a septic field to the north and slightly to the west of the house. So that basically prevents anything from going in on that side of the house, or crossing over to where the proposed location of the garage is. Anything that would be west of there would require a second driveway, which was something that was discussed with planning and zoning, and they said to definitely stay away from that, which is what pushed that building to the east side of the property. The reason that it's set back where it is because there is a 10-foot utility easement that used to border where the two properties were before they were combined. They were two existing 5-foot utility easements, to which I was told that I could not plan to build on top of, and so I put the building behind those, which basically locks me into the square that you've got that got on there. And then the concession of 10 to 15 and then now to 20 feet is as far as I can go west with the building before I do start to impede the natural swale, the natural drainage of the water off the property. I tried to get a few people to come out, a few officials to come out, just to put eyes on it. I know sometimes it's hard to see from just the map, but wasn't able to. I had one member of the Planning and Zoning Committee come out, and it's Bill Rydell, and he told me that what I was trying to do made the most sense of anything that I could possibly do on that property. So,
I was very familiar with your property as well.
All right, well, I think we've laid out the options that we have in front of us right now.
excuse me, sir, I have one more thing. I'm sorry. There's also the next item on the agenda is to combine the lots. And if this goes to a point where the variance doesn't happen to build that building, the combination of the lots was only to facilitate that building. And so if the variance doesn't go through for the garage, then I'm not going to be any longer interested in combining those lots.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a few different possible directions in front of us right now, and I will follow the lead of the board. To loosely spell them out, we could approve the ordinance as presented. We could send the request that the Plan Commission reconsider their findings, and with recommendations from this conversation, or we could take the action onto ourselves and create new findings of fact based on our discussions and the testimony tonight, and then have that prepared for a future meeting. So I'm listening. I'm all ears.
So none of those options included, from what Rudy said before, if we make alterations to this and make a motion, is that not acceptable?
You have the classic tension between your fact-finding body, your plan commission. They performed their role, and they performed it well, and made recommendations based on what they knew. From what I've picked up tonight from your discussion, as the policy-making body of this village, there are a couple of things. Long-range potential plans for eventual improvement, possibly, of Adelphi Avenue, your height observation. So this is not something that's the policy side of this is not something that the Plan Commission handles. I would suggest that you consider, you take this ordinance under your wing, direct your village administrator, and he can coordinate with the committee, the proper committee if necessary, to suggest the additional language to be within your board's findings. You'll note, you get findings of fact from your Plan Commission indeed, but they evolve into your ordinance as the village board's finding. That's where you have the opportunity to put your policy overlays into those findings without stepping on your Plan Commission's toes by any means, because it's the policy side of things. And that you have, that's your choice and at your direction. So you can send it to your village administrator. I'm hoping I'm anticipating your question, Don. You can send it to your village administrator with directions to either, at his discretion, either work up the language, because these aren't major adjustments to this document, or bring it to committee for a final imprimatur, a village board committee for recommendation.
Okay, I do have a question. Okay, the Planning and Zoning Committee agreed with some rather generous variances. The petitioner has voiced agreement with reducing those generous variances. And it's not within our purview to accept those reductions. Again, coming closer to the original zoning than the variance that was recommended to us.
That was just the recommendation, as you well know, and you just need to tweak the language in this document
Well, and
to be consistent with the policy overlay, because the reason for that setback variance is because of the policy, at least as it presently exists, of the village board and the village corporate authority, that if that right-of-way becomes improved, there is an awful short setback from it. So what your policy consideration is, how much of that setback do you want to protect in the event the board or some future board moves forward to that improvement? That's the kind of adjustments. It's not in any way stepping on the Plan Commission's toes on something. It's just that once in a while, their findings in their context run up against what are some longer-range policy considerations that rest here at the
I think we
village board
understand.
level.
My question is more a procedural one.
Yeah. Simply put, table it, directions to your village administrator to come up with the recommended language, then bring it off the table at the next board meeting with the revised language. You'll have a little bit of time to look at it as the packets come out, and if it's good to go, you pass it.
That works for me.
well, I would say then we table it and direct.
Well, before we take official motion to table, I think we need to get clear on what the board wishes to see.
Well, that's what I was going to say next.
So I just don't want to get into the tabling before we have the recommendation. And-
Okay, well, the direction to the administrator after we table it would be to redo the language saying that the setback would be 20 feet rather than 10 or 15, and that the height of the garage not exceed the height of the dwelling structure.
And now, in the interest of not dragging this thing out, would it be appropriate to do a straw poll so we don't, before we go through all this motion and delay it?
I'm trying to listen carefully for any objections to the path that we're on, and if anyone has any, I wish you would speak so that.
I still would like to see the 30 feet. I'm not comfortable
Okay.
with the 20.
Well, but my only question on that still, there's a difference between the possibility of putting a street through and the fact that there's a sewer main there. We do have utility easements still under right-of-ways that we have vacated. And the language just says you can't build over it. But if the plan says that it should not be vacated or disturbed because the road may go through, that's a different story. That's not what I heard. It was just that there's a sewer main there. So if there's further to be found, then fine.
Well, just to clarify that point, in the right-of-way atlas that we've done that lists the must keep and the free to sell or vacate right-of-ways, how does Adelphi Avenue at Beach Road show up? Does it show up as a must-keep, or does it show up as a optional, or?
It's exactly that. It's neither an authorization to vacate or a priority street for improvement. Ford Avenue, as it currently is longer than our ordinance allows for a dead end. So at some point, for snow plowing efficiencies, it makes sense to put a street either on Adelphi, since that is where the development stops currently, a street going either to Adelphi to the north or Adelphi to the south to Beach.
Understood. Thank you.
And I just have a quick comment, Mr. Mayor. I would be fine with just adding an additional 5 feet, making it 20 for a setback. As far as the height of the structure, I really have no problem with that. I actually think it's fitting for the area.
And for me, Mr. Mayor, again, I'm always looking at I guess the big picture and looking at how this is going to impact our future decisions.
Right.
And they're going to be, just as Mr. Hutchinson looked at others in the area as a benchmark for his project, they will be looking at this one. So again, when he completes this consolidation, if that went through, he's going to wind up with almost an acre and a half. And I walked the property, and I based on my unofficial observation, I did appear to have ample room to be able to shift it to the west there without any issues there. They would maybe have to remove some landscape, but that was the only obstacle that I saw.
Right. Okay. All right. So if we are going to take the path that's been suggested, at this point, I'm hearing both no variance on the side yard, and I'm hearing 20 feet as the homeowner has kind of said he would accept. This would be a good time to have a show of hands on the board, at least for the side yard variance, just to give a sense of whether or not we should proceed at all with a change. So I guess what I would ask is those that would be in favor of a variance of the side yard to 20 feet, would you please show your hand?
I'm kind of torn on it, actually. I'd have to take into account Trustee Wells. I haven't visited the site, and
Understood.
take into account his observation, and it may be appropriate to send it back to the planning and zoning if indeed there is an opportunity to preserve the right-of-way.
Well, the fundamental principle in zoning of a variance is typically to offset a hardship that's got some unique characteristics of the property, of whether it's the size or the lay of the land, if there's a bluff or a creek or something that's in the way of a development where you would adjust the site plan to allow use of the land. And typically it's labeled as a hardship. And, the Plan Commission did hear that argument and did come up with a finding of fact that said that, they felt there was a reasonable hardship there, and that for the 15 feet. So it gets pretty subjective from that point forward as to, what the homeowner's asking for and what individuals may see when they see the site. And we didn't have any objections, significant objections on from the Plan Commission on that. So that's the only point of reference I have. And so sounds like we're torn on that. Let's take a moment then and discuss the height of the structure. The homeowner has said that he would not exceed the height of the house. Is that an acceptable accommodation to everyone on the board? Yes. Okay, so that we've got no issue with.
I do have issue with that, but if the rest of the board is
Okay.
in favor of that.
What would your issue be, to take it down to the 18-foot ordinance height then, or?
I'd love to stay in line with the ordinance. I would love to, again, stay in line with the ordinance if at all possible. And again, theoretically, he could actually put up a building with 10-foot walls, possibly a 412 pitch, and still make it close to the 18 feet, or maybe just a little bit thereover.
Well, that's a good point. What's the hardship involved in needing 25 feet?
Well, if we believe the petitioner, he said if he moves any further, it gets in the way of the natural drainage of the property. And
Well, the height,
No, we're speaking
height.
height.
Height,
It would be
yeah.
additional storage, as his application is indicating
okay.
he's looking for storage on the second floor
So
level.
it's just, it
He's
is.
already adjusted and lowered the height, so it matches.
No, it went from 30, he was at 30.
He-
It
He's,
was 30 originally.
he's basically, the plan commission approved 30 feet. He's saying that he would not exceed the height of the house, which would be 25 or approximately 25. So,
Okay, I'm fine.
okay. I still don't feel like we have a clear direction on the side yard, and this is a tough one to send back to the staff to rewrite if we don't have a direction.
Mr. Mayor, would it be appropriate for us to send it back to the
That may be the only
Plan Committee
option,
and let them just mull
may be
over
the
it?
only option we have at this
I
point.
think he has indicated since the last meeting that he was receptive to some
Okay.
tweaking of the,
Yeah, the only challenge is it does take more time, and then to get it back to the plan commission, have them hear it, and then get it back to us, so. At this point, I would accept a motion if that was the desire of the board to do that, because I don't think we're gonna get any language out tonight.
Yeah, one question, if the petitioner is willing to consider the 30 feet, then I think we could have direction to the administrator tonight. If he's not, then we need to remand it to the commission.
I can ask your thoughts on that.
Sure, a couple comments.
Sure.
Back to Cory. So, do you guys have a copy of the Lake County wetlands map in your packet?
No, we don't.
Okay, so I'm gonna pass this one around to you.
Well, let me stop you. We're not gonna get in at that level tonight. That's what the plan commission needs to see. If they had a fully delineated plat of survey that had the boundaries of the wetlands on it, we'd never have got that.
Sure. Basically, the wetland comes across at a slant on the
Yeah,
yard.
yeah, we see how it's portrayed on your sketch, and we understand that it's there. The question is, if you talk about wetlands, that's something that would have to be delineated by a surveyor. An engineer would have to identify the exact point, and then there's setbacks from that would have to be considered, so.
I understand. I'm just trying to stay as far away from it as possible.
And I do respect that as well. I do understand.
Okay. Yeah, and in terms of the height of the building, like I say, Trustee Wells has indicated that I would be willing to make some concessions, but those were concessions that I was discussing with him on the phone. Like I say, this was approved. I was given,
Well,
approval through planning
it
and
wasn't
zoning.
approved, it was recommended.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, you're
yeah,
correct.
Yeah,
It was recommended through planning and zoning, but basically to come here to be looked at.
Right.
And since then, I've made concessions to come back to, even further beyond, a safer zone from what they approved.
right. Understood. And believe me, I understand your frustration in this, and it is a two-part process. Oftentimes, the Plan Commission's recommendation is accepted wholeheartedly by the board, but there are times when there's a fundamental difference of opinion on what it ought to be. And in this case, we obviously, if we put it to a vote tonight, and it's voted down, then it's done. And I'm trying to protect your process here to keep it so that we can get to a point of agreement. So,
I understand.
yeah,
Understand.
okay.
Would that ruin your project if it got sent back to the planning and zoning for more discussion?
I wouldn't say ruin. At this point, I'm trying to stay on schedule where I can get this to roll and be in the ground before we get to a point where there won't be any more outside building. Obviously, moving things inside is desirable. As winter comes around, it gets pretty harsh. So the sooner I can, get ground broken and begin to start to enclose things in, the better off I'll be. But the meetings would be, the planning and zoning meetings are every month, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
First Thursday of,
Do we have time to have this on the next agenda?
I don't have an answer for that, sir.
It's close. I know it's
Yes,
close, depending on how the day falls. Well, we'll do our best. All right, thank you. Then it sounds like what we are going to do is look for a motion to table items A and B and refer item A back to the Plan Commission for further consideration of both the side yard setback and the height restriction to make sure that the language is addressed there.
With directions to the plan commission?
Yeah, with directions to the Plan Commission to consider the expanding that side yard setback to the least variance required and the height to the least variance required for reasonable use of the land. So we would need a motion.
I'll make that motion to send it back to planning and zoning and request that when that does go, to have the full copy of our right-of-way plan map to show the intent of what's there, whether it be a street or a utility easement or whatever, so that they have all the information.
We have a motion to table item, and you're including item B in that as well?
Yes.
Okay, to table items A and B and to refer A back to the Plan Commission. We have a second?
Second.
A second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Addison?
Aye.
Trustee Siddick?
Aye.
Trustee Wells?
Aye.
Trustee Gus?
Aye.
And Trustee Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carries. We will do our best to get that onto the soonest meeting agenda that we can.
Appreciate it.
All right, sure.
Thanks, Alan. One more item, Mr. Mayor, we have for your consideration. We have a motion to approve a plat of consolidation at 11456 Wadsworth Road. And this is the petitioners looking to combine 3 lots. And this is for the Bona Vista Restaurant
Yes.
on Wadsworth and Lewis Avenue. And they're looking to combine, I guess, lots 18, 19, and 20. And again, the total square footage will be 44,130 square feet once that is completed. And the subject property will be zoned B1 district. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve plat of consolidation for the before-mentioned item.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and just for clarification, you said 18, 19, 20. We have 2 different plats that show 2 different numbers. If we could just clarify that to be the PIN numbers that are listed on the application and clarifying documents here, because
Yeah, you're right.
we do have a little confusion there. But it is the recommendation that we have from the committee, so. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Addison?
Aye.
Trustee Siddick?
Aye.
Trustee Wells?
Aye.
Trustee Gus?
Aye.
Trustee Jensen?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Anything else?
That concludes my report, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, I have no report from the TIF committee tonight. We'll move on to Public Works. Trustee Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item will be the purchase of a new front-end loader for the Public Works Department. This is a unique situation. It came about, it's a almost new, barely used piece of equipment that another community is wanting to get rid of. It came before us at the Public Works Committee meeting, and I think we were all in agreement that it'd be a good time to do it. It's been on the wish list for a while. There will be money in the vehicle replacement fund to cover it, but then that fund will be pretty empty, so we'll need to aggressively refund that for the next opportunity that comes around. But this, we don't think will be something that'll bust the budget. And vehicles, similar vehicles are for sale for quite a bit more money, so I think it's a bargain. So I would make a motion that we approve the purchase of the front-end loader from the city of Highwood at the price of $105,000.
We
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a comment. This is a 2012 unit that replaces a unit that's how old?
1998.
1998. I think we got our money's worth out of that
And
one.
they actually have a buyer, I believe, lined up for the used one, right, for ours?
That buyer has not been willing to pay what the village has been asking
Oh,
for the
okay.
used piece.
So I take that back. We may have a buyer.
I'd like to commend our administrator for scrounging up this bargain. It's a really good deal. Low-time machine, pristine condition from what we can tell, and a third less than comparable ones in the trade publication. So it's a really good deal, and congratulations. Well done.
All right. Well, no other discussion. Let's go to a roll call.
Trustee Siddick?
Aye.
Trustee Wells?
Aye.
Trustee Gus?
Aye.
Trustee Jensen?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
And Trustee Addison.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, John.
The second item is will be a motion to approve final payment on the MFT project from 2013. If you see in the packet, back in January, the village administrator recommended that we pay all but the, what was it, 10%? 10% retainage to make sure that the landscaping came through the way we wanted it to. Now is the time of year when landscaping has come through and it's been inspected and approved. So this is to release that final 10% that was being held for the final landscaping. So I would make a motion, approve payment to Payne and Dolan in the amount of $19,393.24.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Gus.
Aye.
Trustee Jensen.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Addison.
Aye.
One,
Trustee Siddick.
one
Aye.
point here, these numbers don't match.
They're a couple cents off. Is that what you're looking at from
Well,
January?
I'm looking at the invoice, 19,533, and our packet says 19,393.24.
Oh, I was looking at the January amount, and it was closer than that.
Oh,
Let's pay the lesser amount.
The contractor's affidavit
Which one is?
states 19.
We are aware of the number discrepancy.
So we're just gonna pay them the lower one, like Don said?
They'll take it.
No, the dollar amount on the packet and the final invoice is the correct amount, and it is the lower amount.
393,
Yes, sir.
Right.
then,
Never mind. Thank you.
Never mind.
since it started.
Motion carries.
Okay, now I believe on the agenda, if you go back after that, there is an item C
I would be happy to field that one if
that
you'd like.
you can field
Yep.
for me.
As our comments from the citizens typically fall at the end of our agenda, it was considered that we would like to hear any citizens that would like to discuss the next four items, D, E, F, and G, which regard special service areas 9 through 12. Anyone that would like to address the board prior to the board considering these ordinances, I would encourage them to come to the microphone and let us hear what you've got on your heart.
Okay, here I am again. I would be remiss if I didn't try again to call your attention to what we, some of the residents in proposed area SSA 12, which is item G, feel is an injustice. I guess I can be considered a spokesperson for our group, the group that opposes this addition of water down our 29th Street. Some are working tonight, some say they aren't public speakers, some have health issues, and some ask just what's the point. We can only hope that you as board members will again, please listen and consider what we have to say. The village is trying to obtain water for petitioners, and we understand that. And we applaud the commendable endeavor. And truly, my heart does go out to someone who has to truck in water to meet their daily needs. I have friends in drought-ridden California who are in similar situations. My heart goes out to them. But some of us think that the process should be done in an honest and fair fashion with consideration of what might be equitable to all. I distributed information at a previous meeting, I believe it was in May, asking for your consideration to alter the boundaries of SSA 12 to include 3 properties that will have water main frontage but have not been included in the water district. The 3 lots that I'm speaking about are across the street from properties known commonly as the residences of Davern, which I forgot to say, my name is Sue Davern, 12172 West 29th. The Elliott Ponzi home and the Hucker home. They are at the east end of the south side of the street, across from the residences commonly known as the Bowringers, the Edwards, and a vacant lot owned by Jensen. 2 of these properties have residential homes with families residing in them, and one, as I said, is a vacant lot. At the risk of sounding like a broken record tonight, I have asked numerous times why these lots were excluded from the proposal and subsequently cost sharing. The answer on various occasions has always been, and publicly, if you go back to previous meetings, because we knew they were not interested in water and probably wouldn't hook up. So basically, the village sent out these response cards to get a feel for interest in water and was privy to the number of yays and nays. Okay, so it was known to them which properties were the no's, and including them could possibly torpedo this project, meaning had they been included, these 3 lots I speak of, there would have been a threat of defeating the proposed SSA should 51% of the homeowners of record and 51% of the electors sign a petition against this proposal. Okay, my request for that proposal and consideration was remanded to committee, and minutes from the Public Works Committee, May 13th, show that the boundary change was discussed, but that if it were to happen, the process would have to start all over again from the beginning. So the committee recommended not to make the changes and just move forward written as is. Trustee Utterson reported this at the May 22nd board meeting. But we are asking you, as our board, our elected officials, our elected trustees, to please correct this wrong. So what if you start the process over? If something is done incorrectly the first time, shouldn't you do it over? So maybe no laws were broken here. Maybe you can draw the maps however you please. It kind of reminds me in a loose definition of the term gerrymandering, to manipulate or adapt to one's advantage. So apparently it's not just for our Illinois legislators when their redistricting is considered, but this is our village. We're celebrating our 25 years of rural spirit, and I guess we, the people that are opposing this action, kind of expected that small town honesty, fairness. I kind of go back to our mission statement 25 years ago, and I don't know, I'm not even sure really what the mission statement was, but I know that we were trying to prevent encroachment on our larger cities around us. We wanted to keep our village our village. We didn't want to become Waukegan. We didn't want to become Zion. So anyway, a level playing field would have been nice. I feel that, and several of the people that I'm with feel like the deck of cards was stacked against us by the village. So a level playing field would have been a fair approach. If we, the no's, lost fair and square, so be it. But again, we don't feel like we were treated fairly here. Really, I don't feel we were given a fair chance. If someone has the water main in front of their house, their property should be included in the proposal, I believe. Something to ponder before you vote is, what if the entire north side of the street said no, and the entire south side of the street said yes, and they were in the majority? Would you have run the water main to supply the entire south side of the street, but because the no people were on the north side, not make them pay? I kind of think not. And so the fact, if the water main is in front of your house, I think you should pay the freight. Our village attorney gave you our certified numbers from the SSA 12 objection petition at the last board meeting, which was held June 26. He explained just how very close the numbers were to defeating this proposal. We didn't get the 51% signatures necessary to defeat the action. We were extremely close. But here's another thing I would like you, our board members, to consider as you make this life-altering decision for many of us, some of whom are on Social Security, I might add, is that one of the parcels of property that was in our proposal belongs to the village. It's the former Public Works building at the corner of 29th and Green Bay. How could we possibly have knocked on your door at the village and said, knock, knock, are you in favor of the water? Could we get a signature on our petition? It was included in our count. But yet, so that was one other sticking point that we didn't really think was fair. And as far as this presentation tonight, I did call the village and ask that we could have a citizen proposal, a speaking area, because of us not having the and 2 weeks ago. So I would have given this presentation at the July 10th meeting, and you would have possibly been able to confer with each other or talk or banter about. So I'd like to think with my rose-colored glasses that at that time you would have given my proposal some more consideration and thought that maybe you would look at our previous proposal presented in May and the associated map that I gave you, and that you might research.
Sue, I'm sorry, she needs to change the battery in your microphone. You wore it out. Sort of like a pit crew, she's quick. We're not going to make you repeat the whole thing.
Okay, is that better? Okay, so, let's see. If I had presented in July, I would have thought that, you know, that maybe you would give us some consideration and look over that map again, that you might research what I'm saying, or even make contact with some of the petitioners. They've all got a story, whether it's the fact that they just put in a well 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or maybe they've got a bad financial situation. You would have had 2 weeks to think about it and how you personally would feel if you were put into our position. But the meeting was canceled, and I can relate. I even have some frustrations with trying to contact board members. I left phone voicemails on Monday with a few trustees, and only one returned my call. And I thank you, Trustee Wells, for calling me back. So again, with those rose-colored glasses, I can only hope that when you make this decision, if you make this decision tonight, that you are making it knowing that you have truly read the material given to you, and that you really researched any questions you might have had, and that you can go to sleep at night knowing that you have done absolutely the best job you were elected to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Have we got anyone else that would like to address the board with regards to the special service areas? Special service areas. All right. Thank you for coming, Sue.
That takes us back to item D.
That would take us back to item D, and let's take them in order, and
Well,
we'll have
first, I
any
would just like
discussion.
to comment on that, the specific things that were just said.
Well, hold on.
Go ahead.
Could we take them in the context of when we get to Special Service Area 12, as opposed to doing it right now? I don't want to start a debate in the midst of, of the ordinances, but we can certainly, we'll have a discussion time for each of these, and let's do it there if we could.
Okay, I will start by saying that I am making a motion that we create an ordinance,
23.
pass an ordinance to create Special Service Area number 9 on Peacock Road.
Right? That would be in ordinance number 23. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion about ordinance for Special Service Area number 9. Okay, no discussion. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Gust.
Aye.
Trustee Jensen.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Addison.
Aye.
Trustee Siddick.
Aye.
And Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, I believe I should make a motion that we vote on an ordinance creating Beach Park Special Service Area number 10, which is on 28th Place.
Okay. That would be ordinance number 24. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion about Special Service Area number 10. There being none, roll call, please.
Trustee Jensen.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Addison.
Aye.
Trustee Siddick.
Aye.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Gust.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, I will make a motion, pass an ordinance, or that we consider an ordinance, right, Rudy? Not that we pass, but that we consider an ordinance. Okay, creating a Beach Park Special Service Area number 11, which is on Green Bay Road and Major Avenue.
Okay, that would be ordinance number 25. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? No discussion, roll call, please.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Addison?
Aye.
Trustee Siddick?
Aye.
Trustee Wells?
Aye.
Trustee Gus?
Aye.
Trustee Jensen?
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Okay. Now I will propose or make a motion that we approve ordinance creating Beach Park Special Service Area number 12 on 29th Street.
All right, that would be ordinance number 26. Do we have a second?
Second.
For discussion, let me start first on the spirit of full disclosure to say, as Mrs. Davern pointed out, that I do live in this district. I will not participate in any discussion about this, and I will not vote should a tie come. So that being said, any discussion?
Well, as far as discussion, I just wanted to mention that we have read this thing many times all the way through. We have considered the adjustment to the map, but I will also add for the record that originally we proposed 8 special service areas. And the reason was in each of those areas there were homes that were in need. After sending out multiple mailings with surveys and having an informational meeting early on, we discovered that 4 out of those 8 didn't have a chance. So we made the decision to eliminate those so as not to spend any more money on legal fees and engineering and hearings and whatnot. Also, Special Service Area number 12 was originally 29th Street area going all the way to Glendale and then heading north to 27th Street when we sent out, and included all of Lone Oak subdivision. We gauged the interest by the responses to the cards that we mailed out, and we decided that we needed to reduce the size because there were no affirmative responses from those far-reaching areas. So, contrary to what has been insinuated, we did not adjust this in order to disenfranchise anyone or to cause anyone a hardship. We made the boundaries according to where the interest was. And if you want to call it stacking the deck, if you want to call it dishonest and unfair and all of the other things you used, I'm sorry that that's your feeling. This was done, like you said, as a result of people requesting it that are trucking in water. So for that reason, I am in favor of continuing with this special service area.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Wells? Go ahead.
and,
Is your microphone on?
yes, yes, sir, yes, sir. And listening to Mrs. Davern's comments, I think she had a concern about lots that may or may not have been included in the special service area. And from what I understand, I have had discussion with staff, and from what I understand, there is, that issue is actually being looked at and possibly addressed even as we speak, if I'm correct. Is that correct, Counsel?
Yes, there's proposed legislation if a non-SSA lot desires to connect to an SSA main line. There's legislation where our finance directs our finance director to compute what the total amount of connection fee should be, and to the extent that it bears a fractional proportion of the overall debt, that will be used to pay down loan principal, which will lower somewhat the taxes for the following year, the special service area taxes. So it's an equity thing because you do have to contemplate in this life with everything so tight that.
So those people will not be allowed to hook up without paying their fair share.
There's no free ride or free ticket to that line. It's an expensive ticket.
Thank you, Your Honor. That was actually, again, her conversation did touch upon it, and that was one of my concerns, and that makes me a lot more at ease, knowing that, again, we do have the legislation. I hope that makes our residents a little bit more at ease, that, again, we have that issue in our crosshairs, and we'll be addressing it at the appropriate time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Other comments or discussion?
Well, I know we've been going through this for how many months now? Many months, maybe almost close to a year, from the time of the initial request that came to a Public Works Committee meeting. And, you know, for what it's worth, we have made every attempt possible to be completely above board with all of our communications, all of our hearings, all of our notifications. We spent many arduous hours going back and forth and drawing and redrawing the boundaries and just trying to include the appropriate people in the fairest way that we could. So I'm sorry if it came across differently to you, but our intent was for the good of the people who were really dependent on the water and desperate for it.
Any other thoughts or discussion? Okay. The clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Siddick.
Aye.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Gus.
Nay.
Trustee Jensen.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Addison.
Aye.
I count 5-1. Motion carries.
And I believe that concludes the agenda items for the Public Works.
Thank you. Moving on to Finance Committee, Trustee Jensen.
Good evening, Mayor. Not a lot to report. We had a relatively routine Finance Committee meeting last week. We are planning our next one, August 20th. There's only one item that I wanted to raise attention to, which is in our earlier our consent agenda, and that is the mosquito abatement program. At the meeting, I asked our administrator to do a little research for us, and I don't expect him to have it here tonight, but it's a pretty expensive program, and I just asked that we obtain some sort of proof of efficacy of that effort and the cost of this spraying of the insecticide that we do. Does it actually reduce the mosquito population in our community? And I presume that is available from the applicator, and if it is, then I'll be reassured and I won't complain anymore. That's all I have.
One of the problems we've had with that in the past is that when, you know, we do the spraying, and whether it's just an impression or not, I don't know, but I think it makes a difference for a time, but the fact that our entire east border has a whole lot of moisture and a whole lot of woods, and they don't do any spraying or anything down there, that we are kind of behind the 8 ball on it. So, I mean, everyone has agreed that it has been somewhat effective. It probably could be more effective if more were to be done on all 4 sides rather than just, 3.
Depends on which way the wind blows.
Well, yeah, my recollection is that well, there are two basic types of pests. There's the Culex and the Aedes types. And the Culex you grow in your backyard, in your gutters and things. And the Aedes are the floodwater mosquitoes that come in from the Des Plaines River and Bull Creek and so forth. And so if those aren't all treated, we may just be wasting our money. And before I forgot, I had an item on the agenda other than that. But I was so emotional I forgot. And that is our finance director has an ordinance. We have an ordinance here that is a little housekeeping thing, approving budget amendments from the previous year's budget to make some changes that relate to some of the savings, actually, that accrued to us, some money that was not spent that had been budgeted. And you have in your packet on page 161 and following the details of that and the finance director's memorandum, cover memorandum. If you'd like to elaborate on that, Peggy, please do.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Jensen. Basically, we once a year have to do, like you said, a housekeeping adjustment. The bulk of the adjustments are reducing budget items where we've spent less than we expected. And because of that, that enabled us to also transfer additional surplus to the capital fund to help with future capital projects. So basically, that's what this document represents, just the formal changes to the budget that was previously approved by the board.
Thank you. That said, I would like to offer for consideration an ordinance approving the budget amendment for 2013-14 budget year.
Right, we have
Second.
a motion and a second for ordinance 27. I did hear a second, right? Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Anybody want Peggy to read this word for word, line by line? No?
She's got a melodious voice. I mean,
She does.
Don't get me wrong.
She does. She certainly can.
I already missed my haircut appointment, so might as well.
I thought you were going to get it colored.
Color, yeah, that's what the highlights are growing out.
I'll take care of that for you, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, there being no other discussion, roll call, please.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Gus.
Aye.
Trustee Jensen.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Addison.
Aye.
Trustee Siddick.
Aye.
Carries. Is that it for you, sir?
I'm sorry, yes, Mayor, that, I'm reading ahead. That does conclude my report.
Okay. Public safety, trustee Siddick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of comments. The first one, I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to the public safety report from the County Sheriff's Office. And I just think it's important to point this out. I was real pleased to see the numbers on this actual report and to make mention that, you know, there's not a lot going on in Beach Park. We are relatively, compared to other communities, we just have minimal activity going on as far as involving crime and that, so I just wanted to point that out. We recently had a meeting with the Sheriff's Department and discussed this as well. And what we're doing, because we have Beach Park Fest coming up here in the next couple of weeks, we will be setting up a public safety booth, which will have a variety of different materials on hand, everything from domestic violence to sexual assaults. So any information that you may need, please visit the public safety booth at Beach Park Fest. And in the future, too, we do have another public safety meeting coming up, which we're going to continue talking about an area called National Night Out. And that's something that we'll be discussing in further, and a date for that will be determined.
Good.
So hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, we'll have that wrapped up, and we'll be able to share that information with the public.
Good.
Thank you.
I have a question. Since you brought up that report, which is a very nice, colorful report,
Yes.
we would be, and of course, if you give me something, I'm going to want something more. And that is, we don't see year-over-year trends with this. It's just a snapshot. It'd be really nice to get an idea. Is this June a good June or a bad June, or are we doing better or worse, or holding our own, and year-to-date kind of stuff, kind of like the finance reports. It'd be nice to have that.
Yeah, usually staff does compile that from time to time, and just because I've been involved with this for a little while, these numbers are, I mean, if they're not consistent, they're lower than what they have been in the
Yeah,
past.
we can get those reports.
Sure.
The Sheriff's Department does
Thank
give
you.
us those as well, so. Or you could visit our committee meeting. Never mind.
I think
Or visit
I
the
went,
booth
I
at
was
Beach
at the last one.
No,
Yeah, he was.
actually, I was
there.
thinking more, we could invite you to come to the meeting with the Sheriff's Department itself, and you can hear it first.
That would be fun.
And these reports that they put through, they're just very easy to follow,
Yep,
so I enjoy having these. Thank you, that's all I have.
thank you. Public Relations, Trustee Miller.
Thank you, Your Honor. We just had a Public Relations Committee meeting, actually, before this meeting tonight, and one of the items that we've been looking at for a while is a brand-new program for the village. It's Adopt a Street. It's not something that we've had prior, and what I'm told is our attorney, our illustrious attorney, is working on the ordinance for this, and we hope to maybe have it by next month.
Possibly.
Possibly, okay. Well, we're all going to hope for that. That's the kind of thing that we could get other organizations involved in cooperatively working together to keep our village beautiful. Secondly, we're looking at some improvements to our website, one of which would be a potential neighborhood watch page. Would get more information out, collectively speaking, to the village residents about the program, about the neighborhood watch areas that are already identified and already staffed with captains, and maybe opportunities for future captains. And we're also going to look at adding some information online about the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, local chapters. We have somebody on staff who's very closely, worked with the Scouts for years, and I know she'll be very helpful. That's Donna Perez. And then just lastly, I'd like to remind everybody who may have done your surveys, great, everybody who's done your surveys, thank you, our citizen-wide surveys. And if you have not, time is running short because end of July is the deadline for having those turned in. So please, please, we have gotten in about 150 so far. We'd like to get maybe another 20, 30 just to get a sampling, a logical sampling percentage-wise. So you can mail it, you can drop it off, you could do it online, but please give us your feedback, and that ends my report.
Very much. Parks and Recreation, Trustee Gust.
Thank you, Your Honor. One item tonight. I'm looking for consideration of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of real property from the County of Lake Treasure. John brought to our attention that it was several properties in the village that are available for purchase through the county tax sale. The Parks and Rec Committee suggested the staff research these properties to see if they would be an asset to our village to acquire. With the support of Parks and Rec, a bid was placed, and we were recently notified that we are the successful bidder of the two pieces of property. One's located on Ford Street, one's located on Beach Road, and I'll let John add anything to that he has.
Yes, before you tonight, there are two properties. They're 3/4 acre parcels each for a total of just under 1.5 acres. They are vacant parcels. One of them is currently being farmed. On one portion of it, the stream runs through it, which has had some issues in the past with beaver dams and blockage and things like that. And so really the intention was to acquire these properties to prevent future development that could impede stormwater management.
Good.
And along with that, total cost would be $4,299.00, right?
Not a bad price for 1.5 acres.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so are you making a motion?
I'm making a motion for that.
Second.
And we have a ordinance here, which would be number 28. We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase. Any other discussion?
Yeah, would these be, it looks like these are likely floodplain. Would they be buildable under any circumstances?
There's a possibility they could be. You can see Mr. Hutchinson's property is just 2 doors over, and he's...
That looks pretty familiar after.
Yes, this is, there is some viable use of the properties. Whether or not a structure could be built on the one on Beach, that one's probably a little more questionable. Certainly the one on Ford has enough area that it potentially could have structures built on it.
It looks like, from the aerial, it looks like part of it's been farmed. Is that what I'm seeing here?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's the part you could build on, I'm sure.
Right, that's what I figured, yeah.
There's soybeans growing on it this year.
Would we lease that then to that farmer?
That,
John, not only will John lease that, but he'll talk to him about the right-of-way as well that's being,
Yeah, we could vacate that right away through there.
There you go. Now you're talking. Sell it to him. Okay, thank you.
all right, any other discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Gus,
Aye.
Trustee Jensen,
No.
Trustee Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Addison,
Aye.
Trustee Siddick.
Aye.
And Trustee Wells.
Aye.
We have a 5-1, the motion carries. All right, anything else from Parks and Rec?
No, that's it, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Now it's time for staff reports. First, we have village engineer, Marcia.
Thank you, Your Honor. As a municipal separate storm sewer system owner, the village has a NPDES permit, National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit, which dictates certain stormwater management, best management practices. And annually, we're required to present an update at a public meeting, so that's what I'm doing here tonight. We, the annual report is due down to IEPA every May, and we submit that. And it is also posted on the village's website if anyone has an interest in looking in more detail. Basically, there are 6 categories of best management practices that the village is required to provide. The first one is public education and outreach. The village does this, as well as stormwater management also assists with that by providing materials in our takeaway racks up in front. The second one is public participation and involvement. One of those activities is presenting tonight to allow the public to hear what the village does, and then as well as participating in other stakeholder meetings. The third is illicit discharge detection and elimination to basically prevent people from putting illegal discharge materials into storm sewer. And the village is required to do a certain amount of sampling, which we do every year. And in fact, this year we trained the village staff to actually take care of that sampling, so less cost to the village to provide that service. The next two, the construction site runoff control and the post-construction site runoff control, the village complies with that by enforcing the watershed development ordinance. And then the final category is pollution prevention and good housekeeping, which we comply with that by your staff, your public works staff completing various training, and then also by the different operations that you practice through the public works department. So we're in compliance yet another year. There is a draft, IEPA issued a draft permit because the prior permit expired last year. There are some more onerous requirements in that one. RHMG did comment on behalf of our clients and provided copies of that letter in the Public Works Committee meeting. IEPA said they did get a number of comments. They have yet to decide what their next step is, if they're going to offer a public hearing or how they're going to proceed. So we'll keep the village informed. And once the new permit is issued, then we will assist in helping you stay in compliance.
Very good.
That ends my report.
Thank you.
I believe the key word in her report came early on, and it was dictate. I mean, a lot of these things are a good idea, but some of the things get a little overbearing, but we're happy to comply.
I think that the most important issue is the one she just raised, which was the new draft. And onerous is a generous word, I think.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else from our village treasurer tonight? No. Thank you. John, village administrator report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have one item before you tonight. It is a resolution advocating for a gubernatorial veto or an amendatory veto of Senate Bill 507, which restricts the connection fees that the Village of Beach Park would be allowed for connection fees to water or sewer mains. The bill as it currently reads and has been approved by both the Senate and the House and is on the governor's desk waiting for a signature, basically would restrict the village's connection fees to approximately $100. As the connection fees currently are, our water connection fees are currently just under $4,000 and our sewer fees are around $2,000 to $3,000. This would have a serious revenue impact on the village, future water and sewer connections for the village, and certainly would deter and hinder future water and sewer extensions. And so the resolution tonight is advocating for a gubernatorial veto or an amendatory veto of that bill, and that would be sent to Governor Quinn's office.
Just for the record, this is not specifically about Beach Park. It's about all communities. We had nothing to do with this being proposed. There was some excessive charges being, fees being charged in other areas. That's what brought this up. Our fees have been in line, or as our finance committee chairman has been reminding us, they're actually low. They don't cover the costs that we put out for. So that would make a huge difference in us being able to afford to operate our system. So,
did you want to make the motion to?
I would love to make the motion that we recommend the veto to the governor on Senate Bill 3507.
Second.
This is resolution number 17. By way of a bit more history, this was proposed downstate a ways to rein in, I think, a township that was charging rather high fees. The author of the bill has since seen the light on on the impact that this will have statewide and well beyond any township issues, and has actually, and my understanding is he has actually asked the governor to veto this bill. That being said, there's no guarantee that that'll happen, and that's why we're taking these steps. This bill does not in any way consider the structure of a community's financing for their water systems, or their whether it be through maintenance, expansion, connection. It doesn't take into any consideration there. It's an arbitrary and random approach to say 1/6 of the annual bill. I mean, what's that? Why not 1/2? Why not none? It's just arbitrary. So we sincerely hope that the governor will take this resolution and hopefully hundreds of others that he'll be getting and do the right thing and veto this bill. So any other discussion?
I'd like to just reinforce what Mark had to say. Our fees are how we support the system, how people buy into it. The folks that are already on the system have paid to build the system, and the cost of adding another connection is appropriately charged to the individual that's joining onto the system. If you don't do it that way, you need a different mechanism. We don't have a different mechanism to expand the system apart from the SSA and that sort of thing, where you have a specific region that you do. So it's important that we do that. And this is an example of poorly crafted, misguided, unintended consequences to this legislation. So, yeah, I agree and appreciate the fact that our administrator brought it to our attention. This slipped under the radar. A lot of communities, most communities didn't even know about it. Right. It was under some township act that IML and some of the other watchdog lobbyist people missed until it was
guessing
too late.
A lot of people that voted for it didn't read it either.
Well, that's not unusual.
That never happens.
Just a guess.
All right. Then I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Addison.
Aye.
Trustee Siddick.
Aye.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
Trustee Gus.
Aye.
Trustee Jensen.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Any report from the village attorney tonight?
No report.
Sorry, John, I didn't mean to cut you off. Was anything else? Okay, thank you. Village clerk, anything tonight?
No report.
Thank you. Under my report, I have one item. We've had 2 requests in the village for liquor licenses. One for an existing establishment, Emily's Pancake House, has recently started staying open for dinner. Would encourage everyone to go have dinner at Emily's if you weren't aware of it. We're happy because it does give us another dining opportunity for evening meals in Beach Park. They're requesting a Class G, which would be a restaurant license. As you would remember, that's the same license that the Buena Vista restaurant has. At this time, they're wanting to do, they're not asking for any modifications to their structure, addition of a bar or anything else. They just simply want to be able to serve alcohol to their guests, their diners. The second license is for the location that you would know as Franken Fries. They have, the owners of the property are the operators of the Franken Fries. They have a potential tenant that would like to come in and operate a business in that location. That potential business owner is requesting a full tavern license. We currently have 3 tavern licenses in the village that exist right now. And so he is here tonight. If you have questions about the operation, or at least a representative, I'm sorry. If you'd like to just maybe share, tell us who you are.
Hi, Trustees, Mayor. My name is Jamie Meadows. I own Pepe's in Waukegan on Green Bay and Grand Avenue. Been in this business a long time. Tom had to go to work, so I was actually coming up to see if you guys could table this till the next meeting. He's working more with the landlord of the property.
Okay.
With what they're doing. A lot of how I'm going to be designing the kitchen in the restaurant is going to be determined on what your decision is on the license. One thing that I can say is that we are, you have a detective from the Waukegan Police Department for over 20 years. I'm tied in with some different things with law enforcement people that I work with, groups, firemen. Nightclub is the furthest thing that I want to do because I work 9 o'clock in the 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, pretty much every day, and I got a 6-year-old at home, and I don't have time to stay out till 2 o'clock in the morning. Neither does Tom. But I can answer some of the questions that you guys want on the restaurant side, as far as how we're working on the liquor and the landlord. I'm not privy to that with him.
Right.
And he had, like I said, he had to go back to work, so.
So in general, is the intention for the restaurant to be predominantly a restaurant? First of all, I might add for
He put in a letter.
Yeah, the letter that was
explaining why we
written-
wanted to do it, yeah.
Yeah, the letter that was written did a very good job of explaining why a Class G license is something that they would struggle with. Just in general, the basic concept for the restaurant, if you could just share that with us, what, you know.
Okay. What we're going to be doing is he has the sandwiches and hot dogs right now, and he's there by himself with his wife. One of the things that we've been talking about doing is kind of expanding on that. I have extensive pizzeria experience. I used to run a small pizza chain. We're planning on bringing in flatbread pizzas, pizzas in general. We're going to have upscale sandwiches, a lot of salads for lunch. Hopefully we get a lunch crowd. Basically, some of the Mexican that we have now, we're going to bring some of the stuff from Pepe's over. Not exactly, some of the fajitas, probably basic tacos, tostadas, things like that. People that can just come in and pick something up, and prices are going to be inexpensive. So. And as far as how the restaurant is,
Yep.
as from, walking through there, there's room in there, I think, for about 20 people to sit down, or 20, 25 people. And that's where this tavern license comes into play, because I guess the way that the ordinance is written, I'm not exactly familiar with it, but it's like 1 bar stool per 10 tables, is that correct?
Basically, there's a ratio.
Yeah, the ratio 1 to 10.
That limits the seating at the bar to keep it more a restaurant atmosphere than a tavern atmosphere.
Yeah, and I think what he was shooting for, like I said, depending upon how this works, how I have that thing imagined on the counters is that there's only going to be maybe 6, 8 bar, maybe 10 at the most.
Right.
It's not going to be this big giant bar. There's no room in there.
Right.
So, and it has to go along this one wall. The tables are still all going to be there. It's just that you're going to be adding this one section in the back. So, and I guess there has to be a partition also. So, like I said, Tom knows more about that than, because I was just doing a lot with the restaurant end of it, so.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I thank you for that. We certainly have, this is a two-step process. First, since there are no licenses available, the board typically will determine whether they want to create a license, and then it falls to me as a liquor commissioner to do the background checks and the due diligence to make sure that we have a qualified operator. As we sit right now, if he's asking that we would postpone till he can make a.
That's it, yeah, it was, because like I said, he was getting a little antsy, because I know he was going, his buzzer was going off, and he had to get back to work. So.
All the nights.
Well, yeah, that's it, and,
Yep.
Police
Okay.
officer, so he's got to go, and I was just like, I'll stay for a while, so.
Okay.
But that's, yeah, if you could table that until he gets back, and then hopefully, next time when he comes in, I might be able to have some, more of a design in the menu. I've got a lot of the menu done, it's just not out on paper, because we were
Right.
waiting to find out how this was gonna go. But I'll propose how the menu's gonna look, and you'll see a lot of the items and how it looks.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay?
I have a quick question, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are we looking at operating two distinct businesses there, or are we looking at a combined?
It's gonna be one.
Okay.
It's just gonna be one business, because one thing is, I'm all about delivery, and I know that, there's not really a whole lot in Beach Park that delivers along Sheridan Road, that short Sheridan Road corridor. But it's just gonna be one business. It's gonna be just all open. It's gonna have the restaurant, and then like the little bar area. And then I guess the other thing he was working on was the machines down the road or something, so the gaming machines, so. And that's all, like I said, it's all encompasses all together, and it stymies how you can put things together when you don't know exactly what you can do. So
Right. Yeah.
that's a big part of it.
Okay.
So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'm certainly willing to consider the request to table. John, do you anticipate an issue with tabling the ordinance as it's presented, or we could simply modify the ordinance would be another approach to facilitate the Emily's if the board wanted to consider that?
Either approach will work, sir. Either we can modify the ordinance as it is tonight to move forward with it, or the whole ordinance could be tabled and brought back, whatever the board chooses.
Well, I would think if we don't have issue or questions with the Emily's portion of it, we could modify it to consider just that portion and then separate them.
Right. It's a simple change in the ordinance. We would just strike the Class A line altogether, and the change in quantity. So if someone wanted to make a motion to that effect, we could certainly consider that portion of the ordinance tonight. Okay, we have a motion to.
Second.
And a second, and just for clarification, that's an ordinance amending chapter 5.16 of Title V of the Beach Park, Illinois Village Code, modifying the number of licenses, and we will amend the ordinance by striking Class A in the table, Class A and the number of 4. So we will be considering an additional Class G license going from 1 to 2. I will not say this is for Emily's. Emily's is the requester. We would make this license available through this ordinance, and then I would consider the operator and make sure that they pass all muster. Okay, any discussion? None. Roll call, please.
Trustee Siddick,
You know what, I have a quick question.
Sure.
By doing this, now, will this also, is there any request for gaming machines in that facility as well?
We don't have any say over the gaming machines at any location. Once we pass
Okay, but those-
remove the ban, they would be eligible. They
Under
have not
G.
asked or indicated any interest in gaming machines at the Class G location that I'm aware of at this point, but that doesn't, they could certainly apply.
I was just curious.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, yeah, it doesn't alter anything. It's simply, if they have a liquor license of the appropriate type, they are eligible to apply for the gaming machines through the state. All right, sorry. You were calling
Trustee
them?
Siddick,
Oh, aye.
That was an aye, okay.
Trustee Wells,
Abstain.
Trustee Gus,
Aye.
Trustee Jensen,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Aye.
and Trustee Addison.
Aye.
Motion carries. That was ordinance number
29.
29. Thank you. And we will then draft another ordinance for the coming meeting for the Class A license request. All right.
We're at the end of our packet.
We're back to the same place again. Citizens addressing the board. If there's any citizen that would like to address the board, I would encourage you to rise, come to the podium. Use your name, your address, and your case. Wore 'em out. All right. We have no cause for an executive session tonight. Is there any other business for the board? Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye, aye, aye.
We're adjourned. It was a